You ever think you've seen injustice until someone tases your pregnant wife in front of your own home? Yeah, that's where my story starts. An HOA officer, a taser, and a decision that would change not just my family, but the entire state's law. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. It was supposed to be a calm Sunday, the kind that makes you forget the world can turn ugly. The sun was soft, the air cool, and my wife Kendra was glowing. 34 weeks pregnant and still insisting on doing her own errands. We'd gone for a short walk that morning, slow and quiet, hand in hand. For once, there was no rush, no deadlines, just us and the sound of our shoes on clean pavement. Willow Ridge Estates looked like a picture on a real estate brochure. Lawns like green carpets, driveways polished, and neighbors who waved but never really looked you in the eye. It was the kind of place that prided itself on order, and at the center of that order stood one man, Rick McDaniel, our self-appointed HOA officer. Rick was the type who took a neighborhood rule book and treated it like a federal constitution. He wore a black vest labeled HOA cop, mirrored sunglasses, and carried a taser on his belt. Not because he needed it, but because it made him feel like someone who mattered. I'd seen him patrol the cul-de-sac like it was enemy territory. The man lived for control. At first, he was just a nuisance. Warning slips in our mailbox, petty fines over nonsense, trash can visible from the street, $50. Unauthorized lawn ornament, $75. He even cited our mailbox once for being too close to decorative shrubbery. Kendra tried to laugh it off. He just wants to feel important, she'd say. But her smile didn't reach her eyes anymore. She started locking the car doors faster, checking her mirrors when she got home. Rick had this habit, standing at the edge of his driveway whenever she came back from the store, pretending to check his phone but always watching. One afternoon, she came inside trembling, holding a slip of paper. Rick had taped it to her windshield. Residents must display vehicle passes while parked in driveways. Her own driveway. That's when I started looking into him. Turned out Rick had a history. Complaints from other residents for intimidation, even one for brandishing that taser during a dispute. The board called him enthusiastic about community safety. I called him what he was, unstable. But Kendra, she believed people could change. Let's just stay polite, she said. He's probably harmless. I wish she'd been right, because the next time she crossed paths with Rick, she wouldn't be holding a grocery bag. She'd be holding her belly. And the man who called himself an HOA officer would forget every boundary between authority and abuse. That was the day everything in our lives split clean in half, before and after. The morning it happened, I was in my study, drafting notes for a hearing on civil liability cases. Irony I wouldn't fully appreciate until later. Kendra had gone to the store just a few blocks away. She said she'd be back in 20 minutes. When I heard the engine of her SUV pull up, I didn't think much of it. Just another ordinary moment. But then I heard another sound. Sharp, metallic, like someone's boots scraping pavement. Voices followed. A man's voice. Loud, demanding. I stepped to the window. There he was, Rick McDaniel, standing at the edge of our driveway, one hand on his belt, the other pointing toward Kendra. She was balancing a grocery bag against her hip, the other hand bracing her belly. Rick's voice carried, all authority and no reason. Ma'am, residents are required to display vehicle passes when entering the subdivision. You've been warned twice. Kendra frowned, shifting the bag to her car's hood. Rick, I live here. You know that. My name's literally on the mailbox. Still need to see the pass, he snapped. Can't make exceptions. She sighed, tired. I'll get it later. I just need to get these inside. That's when he stepped closer, boots grinding on gravel. Now, ma'am, or this gets written up. Kendra didn't raise her voice. She didn't curse or threaten. She just said, firm but calm, no. You're out of line, Rick. And something in that word, no, broke whatever thin thread of control he had left. He reached for his taser, quick. No warning, no reason. Just the sound of the safety flicking off, and before I could even move, click. The sound sliced the air. Kendra jerked, every muscle tensing at once before her knees buckled. The grocery bag hit first, cans rolling across the pavement, a carton of milk bursting open beside her hand. Then she fell. For a second, I couldn't process it, couldn't believe it was real. But Rick didn't stop there. He walked toward her, muttering something about noncompliance, bending down like he meant to take something from her while she was lying there. That's when I saw red. I was already running before my mind caught up, my shoes barely touching the steps. By the time I hit the driveway, he was crouched beside her, hands still on the taser. Step away from her, I shouted. My voice didn't even sound like mine. Rick froze, slowly looked up, and I saw the exact second he realized who I was, Federal Judge Aaron Braden, the man whose courtroom had signed off on his HOA's liability clause 3 years prior. And right then, he knew. This wasn't going to be swept under a rug. Not this time. If you're enjoying this HOA story so far, like and subscribe because the story is only going to get better. Ma'am, you were resisting, he started, but I was already sprinting down the driveway. Resisting? She's pregnant, you idiot. I roared, dropping to my knees beside her. Her body was trembling, her breathing shallow. I could smell the burn from the taser contact. Kendra, can you hear me? Her voice was weak but steady. I'm okay, I think. I dialed 911 immediately. This is Judge Aaron Braden. I barked into the phone. Send an ambulance and law enforcement. An HOA officer just tased my pregnant wife in front of our house. That name changed everything. Within minutes, sirens cut through the quiet suburban air. Neighbors peeked from porches as paramedics lifted Kendra onto a stretcher. Her pulse was stable, and the baby's heartbeat was strong. Relief hit me like a wave, but fury burned right behind it. When the responding deputy arrived, I didn't sugarcoat a thing. Officer, that man, I said, pointing at Rick, just used a taser on my pregnant wife without provocation. Rick stammered. She refused to show her ID, sir. She's not required to show you a thing, the deputy snapped back. You're not law enforcement. You're HOA security, not a cop. They cuffed him right there. Watching that man's face drain of color as the reality hit him, that was the first breath of justice I'd felt all day. That night, I sat beside Kendra hospital bed, her hand limp in mine. When she opened her eyes, she whispered, "He said it was protocol." Protocol? I muttered. He's about to learn what real law looks like. By morning, I'd filed an emergency injunction myself. Tasing a pregnant woman isn't just assault, it's aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. The HOA, by authorizing him, was equally liable under vicarious liability and negligent supervision. The investigation was fast because I made it fast. Rick had no state security license, no use of force training, and his taser wasn't even legally registered. The HOA board tried to distance themselves, claiming he acted independently. But my doorbell footage showed their president standing right beside him minutes before the attack, nodding while he checked IDs. 2 weeks later, Rick stood in court wearing county orange. The jury didn't take long, guilty on all counts. Aggravated battery on a pregnant woman impersonating an officer, unlawful use of a weapon. Sentence, 12 years in state prison, no parole before 8. The HOA didn't escape either. The board resigned under pressure, their charter dissolved, and their insurer canceled their coverage. My $2.7 million civil rights lawsuit forced them to settle. No gag order, no silence clause. The truth would stay public. As Kendra recovered and our baby's heartbeat grew stronger each day, I couldn't help but smile at the irony. They thought they could enforce fake authority in front of a federal judge. And that's how a routine grocery trip turned into a federal reckoning. One HOA officer's abuse of power exposed an entire network built on intimidation and brought it crashing down under the weight of the very laws they ignored. My wife recovered, our child was born healthy, and the gavel came down hard on every last one of them. What do you think, folks? Was that justice served? What would you have done if it was your case? I'd love to know. The end.